Hello again, friends and fans. Raptor here, and welcome back to Steel Division 2. We're going to take a look at the 5th Panzer Division here today and go over some of the things that I really enjoyed from the beta. Previously, we took a look at the Guards tank corps for the Soviets, but now we're on to the Germans. There's going to be a lot more available for divisions for the Allies and the Axis coming very soon, and a lot of cool stuff's coming from the beta, which should be starting like Wednesdays and Thursdays, and apparently we'll go into the weekend so more people can play. So it's going to be really exciting. Mini game modes coming. I'm really excited to see what's just coming down the line for us, so it's awesome. Let's take a look at yet another tank-heavy deck, this time for the Germans, the 5th Panzer. Yes. So if you're unfamiliar with Steel Division 2, it is a World War II game based in the Eastern Front. And there'll even be some Western Front units added very soon from Steel Division, so a lot of players are looking forward to that. But what's new is the Germans on the Eastern Front, and heavy tank units for the Germans, such as the Tiger. 5th Panzer being very good at that. Let's take a look at recon units then, and get started by reviewing some of the things that I saw that worked a lot in the beta, and what a lot of players were playing with, and what a lot of people saw work and what didn't work. So in this game, we have recon, infantry, tanks, support, anti-tank, anti-artillery, air, and defense, which sounds very complicated, and it is. But the cool thing is in this game, you can share deck codes. So if anybody has some deck codes from the Soviets or from the Germans, go ahead and link them down below, as they will auto-fill in a lot of these areas that some players may find intimidating. As you can see, with this being a tank-heavy deck, we get a lot more access to tanks, and they're a lot more affordable at one point until you get up over 4 of them, actually 5 of them. That's quite immense. So we're going to take a look at all the units that worked, and I'm going to give some comments on the beta. We're going to have ourselves a good time. So thanks, guys, for being here. If you haven't already, make sure you click or tap that like button to let me know you'd like to see more. 99% people don't do that, so to those 1%ers, thanks as always for your support. You guys are great. Thank you. BMR75, BMW, actually. Interesting. All right. The Germans using the BMW motorcycle. I forgot that's what that was, and I forgot it was in the game. A lot of people using this at the start of the very start of the beta, and quickly finding out that a lot of these units just seem to get shredded immediately. It may be equipped with an MG34, but a few hits from a rifleman will either decrew the vehicle or destroy the vehicle itself. And recon, very important in this game to see enemy troops, enemy tanks, and increase your line of sight, so that way your vehicles and your tanks and guns can be more effective from a longer range. What I've seen a lot of players using is the Clower. These guys are very, very good. Very good. These are essentially a 2-man squad that can hide inside of a forest or inside of buildings. They're difficult to spot until you get very close. That's why they have exceptional stealth. But they're very good at spotting enemy units, and that's really what you want to use them for, is to basically stealthily spot. They have the ability to defend themselves. Don't use them for attack, only hide them. And they, of course, can be transported in many different vehicles. The Germans having a lot of different vehicles that they can come in. If you'd like to bring them up to a crossroad and defend the crossroad with a half-track, you can do that. You can also bring in a Schwimmwagen, or actually it's not equipped with a machine gun, though. I wonder if that makes it amphibious. I don't know if there will be amphibious vehicles in the game, but maybe the Schwimmwagen with the ability to do so might be. Kubelwagen, of course, with the MG on top. Many different things you can bring in to make them powerful. Ooh, even the Kettenkrad. I've never even seen that. Ooh, that's cool. Wow, that's really cool. I've never seen anybody use that. That's awesome. Wow, get 300 of those. Holy crap. Alright, so yes, very good unit. Probably preferable to bring them in on the back of a motorcycle, have them hop off, and then hide in the woods somewhere. Alright, we have our, let's see, the Spas troop. Again, my pronunciation will be wrong for most things. Cringe, YouTuber! Yeah, okay. But the way to use them is correct, from what I've seen a lot of people deploying them for, and a lot of success in these vehicles and these infantry. Not a lot of people using this group, but it is very powerful to have a MG 34 with you, so very good at defending while reconning. If you're trying to defend a town and you think the enemy's going to attack from somewhere, might be a good idea to put one of these squads in the flank, so that way they can observe maybe the front, but also the side at the same time. So if you put them in the, if you're defending north, and you put them in the far east corner of a village, they might be able to spot down a road somewhere nearby and defend against enemy infantry, so very good. Yes, German half-tracks, and there are plenty of them, by the way. The Germans made a lot of half-tracks and a lot of units that were equipped with multiple guns. Didn't see a lot of people using this. This is a tank destroyer that's armed with a 37mm anti-tank gun. So the PaK 35-36 fires a 37mm anti-tank round, or HE round. So this is pretty good at shredding enemy infantry or light vehicles from a distance, and is very good at spotting as well. So really you want this maybe to advance with a bunch of troops, and then to provide some anti-tank fire and also some recon. But really, again, this is probably meant only for defense of itself. So try to keep that back. Essentially, we see the same unit, just with a 20mm on top. AP, HE, and bullets, too, by the way. 20mm bullet. What the hell? I don't know what that means, by the way. AP, I don't understand why they have bullets there. But it should fire only AP. I don't understand what the bullets are for. But it does have some sort of armored piercing round. But the bullets should be coming from the MG34 that's equipped on the side. So this does have the ability to pin down infantry, finish them off with a machine gun, and target light units as well. Again, this is a beta, so anything that's wrong or seems inaccurate or the point values are all subject to change. So do not think of this as making a deck. This is more of like an overview of a lot of German units, and as the Soviet one was about Soviet units. Let's take a look at the Panzer J. This is the recon variant of that. So a lot of you are familiar with the Panzer IV, with the L48 gun, 75mm with the MG34 in the... wait a minute, where is the... is there... I don't even see the machine gun on here. That's strange. I don't even see a port... Oh, wait, there it is. No, that's interesting. I don't even see it. The Germans using tracks to add some extra armor to the front of their vehicle, but I don't even see where the MG34 is mounted on this thing. That's interesting. Maybe it's top mounted. I don't see that either. But anyway, let's move on to the next vehicle. Very good 60-point unit that can bring some pain. Good to support the infantry and see further because it's recon. And there we go. A Panther. Very powerful at the start of the game. A Panther tank, very difficult to kill for the enemy, even a Panther D. And I've seen some people bringing this out and use it to great effectiveness as an early assault vehicle and the ability to push a line. So it's really cool, really powerful, and of course very, very deadly and hard to kill. So it's a unit that a lot of people are probably going to target. So maybe it's not so scary because everyone will come down on it because it's 120 points and a very important unit. Now keep in mind, in this game you'll need to fill up these slots too. You're given different amounts of points and slots to do that. So a lot of players will not be bringing everything you see here. This is everything available in a division, but you'll need to create a battle group out of that, and with multiple people playing the same battle groups, you'll see multiple players in command of multiple battle groups, which will make a full division. Alright, let's go on to infantry. Infantry, very important for the Germans, and very powerful too. Here's our assault squad. These guys are very good at pushing into a position and taking it, and usually holding it as well. They're very fast-moving units, meaning that they can come right in on, for example, a small truck or a car like the Kubel, and hop right out and attack a position. If you find a way to flank the enemy, these guys will be very good at getting around them and to cut them off from supplies, to eliminate machine gun positions or mortars from the flank. And so you guys can thank these guys later for doing a job that would be a little tougher for a larger infantry squad to be on the move so fast. The Erststaatstruppen, these guys are interesting. They come with a little bit of, they're a 15-point rifle squad essentially, but these are kind of like prisoners or people that the Germans recruited that aren't so keen to the German army, but they're fighting because they have to. And this little heart here means that they're disheartened, though the game doesn't really say much about that. Let's see. Ah, yes, disheartened. This unit made up of either raw conscripts or war-weary or unwilling soldiers. It will fight as any other, but will take 25% suppression as regular troops. So essentially, these guys are way easier to defeat, but they're cheap. So they're not really wanting to be in the war anymore. They're tired of everything. They're they're people who were like POWs or whatever, who were given weapons to fight. But they're going to be easy to push aside. So they're good filler, but I haven't seen a lot of players using them. What I did see a lot of players using, though, was the Panzer Grenadiers. Yes, the Panzer Grenadiers, very powerful unit. They're equipped with Panzer Faust and also rifles and machine guns. They're very skilled fighters. The difference between the Panzer Grenadier, this is actually the Panzer Grenadier Führer, which means this is a leader group, but you can actually select them with the Panzer Faust. So there's a few different units that actually come with those. So it's very heavy with the Panzer Grenadier. Jeez, I was trying to find one that wasn't that, but a lot of leader units. Where's the standard Panzer Grenadier? I don't see them. Where's the one? Oh, here they are. Yes. Panzer Grenadier, 35 point. That's what I was looking for. Multiple machine guns, multiple Panzer Faust. Very powerful. Take a look. Interesting uniforms, though. Very cool. Alright, so we've got ourselves a 35-point, very heavy unit. The Panzer Grenadiers are tough to beat when you hit a high veterancy. They're well equipped for anti-tank, and with 2 MG42s, very good against infantry MP40s, very good against infantry and the the Carabiner 98K. Very good against infantry. These are very, very good against any sort of squad that will come near them. And the Panzerfaust 2 is very good at holding the line. So good stuff. So there's many different variants of the Panzer Grenadiers. We can probably keep this short. There's Panzer Grenadiers without the Panzerfaust. There's Panzer Grenadiers with the Panzerfaust. The point difference is small based off of it being anti-tank. There's the Panzer Grenadier Führer, which are squad lead units that, if kept nearby, can give them a big bonus. Wow, some of the Germans even wearing gloves. Cool. So if they're kept nearby, they give them a veterancy bonus, so they're very powerful. So we'll kind of skip over the rest of the Panzer Grenadiers because they're essentially the same for the Panzer Grenadier Führers. But let's go back to the BMW then. This is the command unit that is mounted on the back of a motorcycle. And I don't know what he's doing here. He must be checking his... yeah, I think he's tweeting or something. He's updating Twitter. I don't know. He's supposed to actually have a machine gun. That's why he's holding it that way. But these leader squads include the Panzer Grenadier Führer, the BMW Führer, the Pioneer squads also have a Führer, and we'll take a look at that in just a second. And then there's also the Panzer Grenadier Führer. Okay, let's move on to the other units here. Sturm Pioneers, which are essentially a flamethrower squad. So there's one man equipped with a flamethrower. You can see his tanks there on his back. And then that's supported by a few men with MP40s and 98Ks with some smoke grenades, Nebelhandgranate, and they're very good at attacking towns, or even defending. If you keep them nearby a town and the enemy happens to, occupy some of your buildings, you can pop out of the woods and be like, surprise, and fully eliminate an enemy squad that way. So it's going to be a real powerful thing. Alright, let's take a look at my other favorite unit, the Pioneers. Very, very powerful units. They're very good at tanks, and they're very good at pinning down infantry, but essentially they're assault engineers. So don't think of them as anything other than really light AT, and they need to get extremely close. So not a lot of players have used them, but I just think it's cool because they actually get a machine gun. And the Germans gave their units a lot of machine guns, so it's cool to see another squad with an MG. The Soviet units, mostly from what we've seen from the 2nd Guards Division, only get machine guns in their rifle squads, but it seems like almost every German squad gets a machine gun except for these guys. So it seems like most... Oh, and also probably the flame troops, yeah. So pretty much everyone's got a machine gun except for those guys, the assault squads, and the leader groups. So infantry, very important. Let's move on to tanks. This is the reason we're all here. I love tanks. They're so cool. Very cool. Let's take a look at the Panzer IV. And the Panzer IV, really no different than what we saw for the recon tank. This is the Panzer IV-H rather than J, which means that I think the turret is hydraulic rather than manual crank. I think that might be the main difference between those two, but there's many differences, I'm sure. Alright, carrying on where we left off, the Panzer IV-H. We've got ourselves the, the L-48 gun, 75mm AP shells, and then the HE as well. So 32-55, a very well-rounded tank for taking care of other enemy tanks. And infantry, of course, equipped with 2 MG34s. You can barely see it. I think a lot of people are complaining about that. Like, I think that's the machine gun there. That's a heavy oof right there. But regardless, the machine gun does function. Oh, I think I actually see it right there now. Wow, it's hard to see. It looks like it's just a regular rivet. You won't be zooming in so far on these tanks, so it's very detailed, aside from those two things, for a game where you're playing macro rather than micro. But there's all your stats. Penetration of the gun, pretty solid penetration. Very good. For Panzer IV, and then of course there's the commander variant of that as well, which has pretty much the similar design. Everything's the same aside from the fact that it's a leader unit that prevents the other ones from panicking. Let's move on to the Tiger E then. The Tiger E in the game, you can actually start with the Tiger with two of them at deployment phase A, and boy oh boy is that a beauty. Of course, the Tiger, very big legend, very difficult to kill from the front and the sides, impossible almost to kill from the front and the sides, well, without the appropriate tank, of course. But at this point in 1944, when this game takes place, Tiger is not as good as it once was back in 42. So it almost looks more rusty than it looks. Oh, yeah, wow, look at that. You can actually see splash up on the front of the tank. Very cool. Mud splash all over the thing. Very nice. Good detail. If we take a look at the... heavy tank front armor 125, similar to the ISU. That's why that's such a good vehicle against that. 165 penetration, so with an 88mm with the 2,000 meter range, very powerful vehicle. Tiger is not to be underestimated, as well as the Tiger Führer, which also is just the command variant of the same tank itself. Let's take a look at the Panther A. Yes, the Panther, a much beloved tank, especially by me. 185mm, for it being a medium tank. Boy, oh boy, can this thing really dish out the pain. and even more impossible to kill to the front of this tank than the Tiger. This thing can really just pack a punch and also take a lot of punches directly from the front. A lot easier to kill from the sides, of course, but this is a vehicle that's going to be real scary. If you see maybe a Tiger with a couple of Panthers in the company with it, it's going to be real deadly, so you need to watch out for that. There's also a command variant to the Panther A as well, so there's your leader unit for that. You get very limited tanks on that one. And then, of course, the Panther G, which is a much improved vehicle. Let's actually take a look at the differences between the Panther A and the Panther G. You can see the gun on the Panther G much better. The L70, KWK-42, L70, which is interesting because there doesn't appear to be any differences in those guns. KWK-42 L70 and KWK-42 L70, but you can see the penetration of the Panther G is 250 millimeters, sorry. Oh, meters would be incredible. But the penetration, of course, of the A is only 185. That is really amazing. That's really impressive, actually. With the same gun, maybe the ammunition types are different, I'm not sure, but maybe it's because this one actually penetrates with APCR. That might actually make the difference. That might be it. Maybe it's because this one fires APCR rounds, and so thus it has a maximum penetration because of that different ammo. That might be it. If you think differently, let me know down below in the comments section so we can figure that out. I'm assuming that might be why. Everything is the same between these tanks, though. You see the frontal armor, side armor, etc., all the same. Top speed looking about the same, too. For that vehicle. Where's that? Rate of fire, 6 rounds per minute, penetration, accuracy. Actually, it only talks about the gun, but not the speed. 32. Yeah, there it is at the bottom. Okay. Yep, so everything's the same, and of course the command variant of the tank as well. That's no different. So the Germans, we're talking about a super tank-heavy unit here. Very good stuff. Very nice. Very, very nice. Okay, let's take a look at the next thing. Let's go to support. Flaman Werfer, of course, the Werfer is Flaman. Yep, they're your flamethrower unit equipped on the back of a motorcycle. They can hop off and then head into a village, start laying down some flames. Same with the half-track, too. The Germans actually have the Flammpanzer 251-16, which means that they can shoot flames off of both sides. Very powerful unit for assaulting. Very, very powerful. It can literally liquidate enemy infantry in front of them and push everything else to the side. It is really cool. Very neat unit and a very powerful one as well. I've seen it work just once, and man, I can't believe more people didn't do it. It was very cool to see. Here comes the legendary Lee gun. This Lee gun, of course, towed by a truck, is a very good infantry gun. Super accurate, from what I understand. The accuracy, let's see, is 30%. That is actually pretty big on a scale of 10 most accurate. So out of 10, this thing is, well, it's 30% accuracy. But still, oh, there it is right there. Indicates on a scale, but for planes, accuracy is greater reduced while moving. Yep. So what we see here is that this essentially is a really good HE weapon. It really is just like a more powerful mortar. It shoots this more like a howitzer, of course, but shorter range, and that's how these infantry gun focuses work. LG-18, very nice stuff. Heat rounds, of course, could pop a tank, but very unlikely, but very good at providing sustained 75mm fire onto a position. Let's take a look at another big O gun. This isn't yet artillery, but these are assault guns, similar to like the ISU, except this is more designed like an artillery unit. It does have about 2,000 range, so it makes it more like an artillery unit, but the big gun on it, it's pretty substantial, 150mm, very big shell that can blow, wow, the area effect is 32,000, or 3,250, I mean. 3,250, huge. Damage is pretty big too, so it at least can do some big splash damage for anything around it. So it might not be accurate, but man, can it lay down some pain. Let's take a look then at the other vehicle here, which I was going to take a peek at, which was that. Oh, there was something else here. Oh, the MG42, of course. There it is. Yeah, the MG42 in the game. You have your, I guess your stand. Looks like 34s were replaced at this time with 42s for stationary, but all the 34s are inside the vehicles. It's just easier for them to reload them. If you've ever seen a video on it, the reload to the MG42 is a little different, or rather changing out the barrel. And actually, yeah, I think the reload side is a little different. So MG42, I've fired one of those things. Man, you will burn through ammunition like butter in a microwave. It just is gone. It's gone, baby, gone. All right, let's take a look at the commandant for the Germans. Interesting. He doesn't really look like an officer, but this is the unit that can really provide a lot of, I suppose it's probably for a good thing that he doesn't look like an officer. He'd be shot first. But these guys can provide a bonus to the squad leaders or directly to the infantry, too. That can really cause a lot of pain and damage to any of these guys. So really good stuff. Good to see. Let's move on to the, let's see, the Mauler munition. Or what is the the Maltineer. The Maltier? Maltier. Yeah, I've never actually known the name of this thing, but essentially it's like your typical Opel Blitz truck with just the half-track variant to it. So it's got a lot of... I wonder if it has more tow capacity. Transport heavy. Supply is 15... Ah, yeah, actually, it's 15,000 versus the Opel Blitz munition, which is only 1,000. So, same points, but you probably get less of them. So that might be the difference there. Yes, you get one less. So if you're supplying heavy artillery, this might be a better vehicle to do it. But if you're supplying infantry, this might be the better unit. It's probably faster, 113 kilometers versus 47. Yeah, absolutely. So this thing, there's a big difference here you're going to have to consider depending on what you're resupplying or what you plan to do. Oh, a commander unit inside of a half-track. Very nice. We've got our Sdkfz 253, which is just the MG34 on the standard scouting half-track. So that's pretty cool. I've not seen that before in use. And then, of course, our commander tank of the Panzer IV variant, the Tiger variant, and then the Panther variant. And of course you can have each one of these at different levels, so you can have each one of these in your deck. It doesn't prevent you from equipping each one of these. So if you're really wanting to bring out a lot of commanders, just in case you think they'll get killed, I don't think their effects stack. That is something I'll have to test. So does anyone know, and if you know, please do let me know, if you have one commander on the field, and then you have a second commander on the field, does that double their veterancy, or does it just make it one? And I assume what it would do is probably... you know, like, for example, if you had one commander on the left side of the map and the other on the right side of the map, it just increases their coverage area, but their effects probably don't stack. Ah, the Panzerbeschütz. This is interesting. I haven't seen this used too much either, aside from maybe, I think, an AI deck that can use it quite well. It is essentially just a 28mm, yeah, fires APCR rounds, 100mm penetration, very small anti-tank gun. I think it was dropped with paratroopers, but was used in good numbers because there were a lot of them against lighter vehicles. So this is something that can really smash anything lesser than like a T-34. So again, we're talking about a good ambush position that can fire very quickly. Rate of fire is 15 rounds per minute, so it's very, very, very capable of destroying enemy units from a medium range of, let's see, about 1,000 meters. So that's pretty close in an ambush position. And again, you can set these units to not fire until the enemy gets to a certain distance. So if you're firing at vehicles, only APCR shells, so no ability to encounter infantry, unlike the PaK 36 37mm. Interesting. 37mm gun here, accuracy 35. Oh, 2000, yeah. This, similar to the Soviet, I think it's the M26 that I'm thinking of, or, well, I'm probably wrong on that, but there's the 45 millimeter, which it's called in the game for the Soviets. A similar thing, a very light gun that can fire very quickly, and this can damage T-34s and possibly destroy them depending on where you're hitting them, but you can constantly lob shells down range and get them to fall back and panic with a high number of shots. And of course, when you absolutely positively got to kill every tank on the battlefield, except no substitute, the PaK 40 75mm, equipped with APCR rounds, AP rounds, and of course HE rounds. Very deadly against vehicles. Very famous, very well known, very nice design. I wonder what those slots are on the top. Is that accurate? That look, I wonder if that's supposed to be paint. I don't know. But anyway, maybe it's for putting bushes on or something. I don't know. But very nice looking vehicle to tow with it as well. Opel Blitz, probably a good one because it's so fast. You want to get these vehicles into position ASAP, or these AT guns with their vehicles into position ASAP, so you can fire on the enemy for ambushes. And then, of course, speaking of ambushes, you have yourselves the Panzerschreck, which you can bring in with regular infantry into the woods and flank enemies, and really great against any sort of tank. With 200 millimeters of penetration, there's really not much you can't get through with that thing. And then, of course, a bigger squad for the Panzerschreck, really more of a squad to push with. They do, what is that? Is that the, oh, it's the G43. Wow, it doesn't look like it, but yeah, the G43 rifle squad plus also an AT man. So good at defending, good at pushing a little bit. Definitely not a unit you want to assault with, but definitely more than capable of destroying a tank than that group is, because they can push through infantry, and probably a little bit more detected. Mortar 3M, my favorite. I love this thing. It's essentially a PaK 40. It is actually a PaK 40 on a tank. It's on the, I think it's on the Panzer 38T. Is that it? Panzer 38T? I think that's what it's called. The light tank from the earlier war, yeah, earlier in the war they used Panzer 38s and then started making Mortars out of them, which replaced the Panzer Jaeger, etc., etc. I don't know everything, but essentially this is an upgraded version of the Panzer Jaeger, and then on to Mortar 2, and eventually the 3M, which is very powerful, very good. We're talking, yeah, again, we're talking about a Pack 40 on tracks, so this has actually some mobility, and interestingly enough, lesser price, but I'm assuming it's because it has, oh, interesting. It has a lesser rate of fire, probably because the crew is more confined. And also, one other thing I'm thinking about is ammunition. Oh, it does have more ammo, though. 632 and 10. 623 and 10. Okay, so you do still have a good number of HE rounds, but the rate of fire is less. Let's move on to anti-aircraft guns. I really love myself the Flak 37. Really a great piece of tech there. It is not as good as the Bofors, but it really can get any aircraft out of the sky, so that's a real good piece of equipment there. And smaller than that, and similar in design as the the Flak 38. It's the 20 millimeter, and it's still working on stuff. So we're talking about 20 millimeters that and 30 millimeters that still have AP and HE penetration values. Let's move on to the Gepard. That essentially is the same thing as the Mortar, except mounted onto the back as an anti-aircraft gun. So it's again just a different gun on a different chassis, which was used previously. So really cool. We actually have the ability to fire on the move with the 20 millimeter and displace and do that kind of thing. It has quite a bit of rounds. Let's take a look at the other one. 540 rounds for this one. So if you constantly are being bombarded, mobility and extra ammunition might be a good thing. Though these are going to give the enemy more. They're a little more expensive to call out, but for the 70 points, you may as well. For the 10 extra, because you get the extra ammunition, and it actually is mobile, and you won't need to resupply it as much. So it's probably cheaper in the long run to spend the extra 10 up front. Yes, the half Flak track, I guess you could call it. The Sdkfz 11 Flak is the 20 millimeter, just mounted on the back of a flatbed, and it seems to be pretty much the same thing as the it's the same thing as the Gepard, just less armor. Obviously, and everything else seems to be about the same. Nope, actually the off-road speed of the Flak 11 is a little faster. Interesting. Or rather, the road speed is faster. Sorry, the speed is off-road speed, and road speed is road speed. So it is a little faster to use the Gepard on flat ground, but this thing could actually move faster into cities. So if you're going to defend an urban area, this might be a great way to get guns up as soon as possible. Better than that, even better than that, of course, is the the Flak 38 20 millimeter quad cannon on the back of a truck, the Sdkfz 7.1. Very nice piece of equipment, and lots of ammunition for that one. That thing can fire for days, which is why it's 100 points. Although I haven't really seen these kill a lot of aircraft. This might change in the game. One thing I heard the staff talk a lot about is changing how anti-aircraft works, and that was a complaint of a lot of players from the previous game, is how effective or how ineffective anti-aircraft guns were. Let's move on to something that maybe isn't really so much anti-aircraft and more of anti-tank. Yes, the Flak 88. My favorite, a dual-purpose gun, 75 millimeter. What? Shouldn't that be an 88? Oh, greater than 88, I see. Alright, so an 88 millimeter or rather armor-piercing HE, and then I don't understand what the hell the bullets are. I don't know what that means. Does that mean the crew is going to get out a handgun? I don't know what that means. I've not heard that term before. Flak 41, 88 millimeter, though, perfect against tanks. I see it hit tanks more than aircraft. So even though this is under the anti-air tab, you're probably going to want to put this into a gun pit, which we'll see in a moment under the defenses, so that way you can just rip enemy tanks. It's very easy to defend this gun in a gun pit, but more affordable to call out a Tiger. This thing's armed with 45 AP rounds, isn't it? Or no, is it? Oh, it's actually armed with 18 AP shells, so you will need to keep it heavily supplied if you're going to put it into a gun position, but it is very, very accurate. As you can see, the accuracy is 40%, as where the Tiger is at... oh, it's at 40% as well. Okay. More rounds, of course, but I would say it actually... I feel like it'd just be... Even though it's not cheaper to call it out at the start, I think you'd end up losing more 88s... Less 88s, rather than more Tigers. They're very difficult to destroy when in defensive positions. Alright, on to the artillery. A lot of people wanted to see artillery in this game and see how it works. The Cannoneer are essentially like artillery spotters. If they get close to enemy units, they make the artillery a lot faster. And Battery Fuhrer makes the... oh, there we go. There's what a real officer looks like. There we go. An artillery officer essentially makes the artillery gun fire faster, more accurate. It's basically raising the veterancy for those artillery units. Speaking of artillery, the first one we'll take a look at is mortars. So you have your GRW81 and 120. Bigger cannon means bigger blast, of course. Rate of fire and all those things are all subject to change. But for 20 extra points, you can get almost, a bigger mortar, almost double. Quite a bit bigger on that one. Almost, not quite, but still, the blast radius is probably way greater. Suppression is 18. As we're suppression on this is 337. Wait, I'm clicking on the wrong one there. Suppression 259 versus 337. There you go. So almost 100 more for less than 100 extra millimeters. But the point range of 20 seems about fair, I guess. Let's take a look at the next vehicle here. We've got our half-track mortar. I didn't actually use this as much until later in the beta, and this really proved to be effective as well. To be able to fire and then be on the move immediately with this is super... it's just awesome. To be able to fire 82 millimeter times 25 is very good. And then to move out quickly. I wish it actually had some more. But SP mortar standing for, of course, self-propelled. I wonder if it actually says that if we hover over that. It does not. 100 millimeter. Big boy. That is a huge one. The SK-18 100 millimeter. Wow, look at that. That vehicle's tiny even compared to the gun. That's a big boy. That is, look at it. Actually, the wheel is as tall as a man. If he stood up straight next to that wheel, the top of his head would be right up there. This thing is for bashing. If you're going to hit a defensive line, this is the vehicle. This is what you want. This vehicle type here to transport this big gun. That's what you want together. That's going to be very powerful, and even bigger than that, the 105. Yeah, look at that. Now I think this probably the 100 millimeter probably might have a greater accuracy, 20%. Nope, looks like they're about the same. I'm surprised by that. About the same rate of fire. 299 versus 309. Oh, wow. The 105 having greater... Wow, the damage is actually... Wow, I'm actually surprised to see this, but you get 50 100 millimeter shells versus the 30, so at least you won't have to resupply it as much. So that might be something to consider for future plans. But definitely want to bash through with those. Even bigger than that, the 150. Look at that, the FH-18 150 millimeter. Big boy, 40 rounds on that one. Very nice. You got your Wesp as well, which is another self-propelled artillery gun. So we're talking about 105 millimeter now mounted onto that same chassis again. Oh, no, actually, it's different. Similar chassis, I should say. Some of these lighter German chassis. And I might not know much about the differences in the chassis, but they all look pretty similar. We're talking about the same kind of design here, where the Germans were really going for this kind of mid-range, mid-size. If you take a look at on there, the differences between those two are pretty close. They're pretty close, but very different. The Wesp and the Mortar, very similar looks to them, but also very different. But we're talking about the same kind of profile, just on a different vehicle chassis. And this will be very powerful against enemy infantry and possible enemy units too. You're trying to get the enemy to fall back and to stun them, essentially, is what you're trying to do with a lot of that. And the Germans having a lot of artillery options. If that doesn't do it for you, then the Hummel is probably what you're looking for. The 150 mounted on the SP chassis there. Even bigger now. Slow-moving vehicle, but very powerful indeed. The Germans, if artillery, on-screen artillery doesn't do it for you, then off-screen artillery of 170 millimeters. This is a vehicle you can call into spot artillery for off-map artillery. And in other words, they have a special ability to, like, you can click on the map and tell them to artillery something, and they will drop a off-map round onto it, actual barrage, not just a round. And then, of course, there's also the 105 millimeter version of that as well. So a couple of different things there. Let's go over the German aircraft. AR-66C. We have ourselves just a standard German biplane for recon. I'm surprised they don't see the Storch here, but maybe that was Western Front. And pretty simple. What you see is what you get for recon. Let's move on to the DO-215. I've seen people actually using this a lot, and I don't know why. It just has a few 7.922 machine guns on it. 4 of them, actually, but... I don't really see this as... it's air recon. Oh, I see. That's why people are using it. But I guess it's a little bit more expensive, but really is hard to defend. I would rather go for the 10-point and get it shot down and see what's there than 50-point and not be able to use it again. So now I see why people are using that. It was just in order to peek at what the enemy was doing. But very similar to that, of course, the DO-217J1. Wow, look at all this damn... Oh, yes. Ooh. Yeah, this thing has some 4 forward-firing 20 millimeters and 7.922s and another 13 millimeter machine gun. So this thing can really pound down tanks. Really good for ground attack, possibly to also attack enemy guns, that type of thing. In fact, you can call in a lot of these aircraft to disable enemy anti-aircraft guns. Anti-aircraft is not as accurate as aircraft. So, you know, it's a lot easier to actually destroy enemy units with with like a ground attack plane than it is to actually destroy the aircraft itself. Ju-87, the Stuka, that's right. Very cool thing. The medium payload, 250 kilogram times 1. Oh, really? Wow, that's a small bomb. I thought it'd be way bigger. I thought we'd be talking about a 500, but 250, still an accurate strike, which can definitely destroy enemy tanks. By this point, probably obsolete in 44 against Soviet tanks, but still can bring down some pain on targets, and especially stationary infantry. ME-410, again, we're talking about a 20 millimeter, similar to the DO-217J1, and a lot of forward-firing guns, especially with the 20 millimeters, just with the 2, and then another 13 millimeter. So not as many forward-firing guns on that one for the 20 millimeters. And you can see the there's no penetration on that. Interesting. The 20 millimeter, it says bullets, so it's not universal. Okay, I don't know what that means. But let's take a look at the ME-410. Again, similar design. We're talking about 2 30 millimeter, 2 20 millimeters, and then the rest are machine guns. So we're talking about 2 big boys underneath. Those are the 30 millimeter, and then 2 of the standard flak guns up front. 2 more 20 millimeter autocannons. So those are definitely going to be very powerful against enemy tanks. So this, although the Soviets, the problem is the Soviets bring in a lot of tanks. The second guards, the second guards deck that we're fighting against is going to have a lot of tanks. So this is very good against some sort of big tank, like an IS-2, that type of thing. Not so good against T-34s. Let's go on then to the only fighter that the Germans have, the Fokker Wulf 190 AB. Or rather the A8, sorry, the AB. I got confused with the Soviet one, which is 1B, the Yak-9 1B. But this is the A8, the Fokker Wulf 190, very powerful plane, very good at fighting. That's why it's worth 120 points. However, the Soviets can call out so many that this plane needs to be supported by the anti-aircraft in order to win. It's a very good plane, very fast, but the 20 millimeters and everything else, this is likely to get shot down. But still, good plane. And if you have, if the enemy's not really brought a lot of anti-aircraft guns and no fighters, you pretty much own the sky against their bombers if they brought those. So that's a good thing. All right, everyone. Well, that's it for today. Thank you very much for being here. I appreciate everyone tuning in. We'll take a quick, brief look at the barbed wire, the gun pits, and the trenches and the bunkers. These are, of course, what you just put on for front lines mode, or for breakthrough mode, where you do create your front lines with bunkers and things like that, and trenches and everything else. So there's your gun pits and things that you can put artillery and anti-tank guns in, and the barbed wire blocking infantry. But that's it for now, everyone. If you haven't already, make sure you click or tap that like button. Let me know you'd like to see more. Greatly appreciate everyone being here and showing their support. So that is it for now for Steel Division 2. Let me know what other divisions you want to see, other things in the beta. Again, remember, this is a beta, so you know all this junk that's on the field, this is all going to be removed soon. These are just aesthetics for now, so don't worry. But anyway, looking forward to what you think about the decks, and what if you'd like to suggest a code or something down below. Appreciate everyone's support and their positivity as we get excited for the release. I'll see you all next time. Goodbye.